Forgiveness is selfish. You do it for you. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I want a relationship with you. I probably don't. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I'm giving you a pass and all of a sudden I'm telling you you're right. You're still a dumpster fire, you're still awful, and you're still wrong. I'm forgiving for me. Forgiveness, the formal definition for me is I want you out of my head. Bottom line, that's what I want. I want to stop thinking about you. I want to stop dreaming about you. I want you out of my head. And my system is designed to get people out of your head.
Hello and welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickle, and our guest today is Katharine Giovanni. And let me tell you a little about her. She is an award-winning, best-selling author, speaker, and advisor. And her newest book, which is what we're going to talk about today, is The Ultimate Path to Forgiveness. Unleashing Your Power, right? Yeah, I can't read my own writing. Unleashing Your Power. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is the power of forgiveness. And I know it can be such a difficult conversation, and there's people that just flat out don't believe in forgiveness. And we're not here to try to convince anybody of anything other than be, well inform our listeners. And I like what you said before we went on the podcast, and I'll let you share a little bit about yourself and then what you're going to teach us.
Everybody tells you you have to forgive, or you should forgive your pastor, your teachers, your parents, your friends. You really need to forgive. Nobody teaches you how.
True.
And what if you don't want to? Then what do you do? Because there's some things in the world that are unforgivable. Now, everybody watching and listening to this on a 10 scale, with 10 being unforgivable dumpster fire and 1 being the easiest person in the world to forgive, every single one of you are thinking of your number 10 unforgivable people, and you don't want to forgive those people. And that's called totally fair. And you don't have to forgive those people. Why? I'm the only one that'll ever tell you that. It's because there are a lot of people, places, and things. And I did say places and things, so stay with me. We'll circle back to that one. There are a lot of other people, places, and things you can forgive before you even get to that dumpster fire. Because you start with the easy ones. Part of my system is to start with the easy ones and work your way up.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did when I worked on my forgiveness. And I'm still working on it, so for some of it I am.
Everybody, we're human, and humans irritate other humans, and you're never gonna be away from forgiveness. I mean, I've been working on this since I was a kid. In the 8th grade, I was being bullied really badly because I was different. My parents were very pickled. They were alcoholics, got a horrible divorce, and I tried to commit suicide because of all the stress. So I kind of turned into one of those kids, those teenagers, who I'm talking about. And for the next 10, 15 years, I just kind of bobbed through life randomly. And then my mother fell down a flight of stairs, broke her hip, and ended up in the hospital. And even my mother couldn't get a gin and tonic in the hospital. So she dried out, and we sent her to rehab, and we became closer than sisters. We shared everything. We forgave each other. And 3 years later, she died. So, she died of breast cancer, which I eventually got myself. I've been 12 years cancer free. But back in those days, I knew that if I didn't clean my act up and change, I would die too. So I've been sober now for 34 years, and I cleaned my act up. And you go to recovery and you go to AA, and they say, okay, you have to do a 4th step, and you have to reach out to people, and you have to make amends. Okay, but I was shy. Now I'm an extroverted introvert now. I've taught myself how to kind of turn it on and off. But back then, reaching out to people who were probably mad at me. No, I didn't want to. No, thank you. Yeah. So the system I've actually created with a couple of friends of mine in 2021, our system here, I could release the stress from everybody right now. You can do it in the privacy of your own home, and you don't have to reach out and call anybody unless you want to. Forgiveness is selfish. You do it for you.
Yep.
Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I want a relationship with you. I probably don't. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I'm giving you a pass and all of a sudden I'm telling you you're right. You're still a dumpster fire. You're still awful, and you're still wrong. I'm forgiving for me. Forgiveness, the formal definition for me is I want you out of my head.
Mhm.
Bottom line, that's what I want. I want to stop thinking about you. I want to stop dreaming about you. I want you out of my head. And my system is designed to get people out of your head.
And I am 100% in agreement, because my belief on forgiveness is it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with
Yeah,
me. And
exactly.
I recognize that, because the one thing I didn't want to become was bitter and resentful, and that stuff messes with your body and your mind. And so I knew the importance, because I did dive into understanding more about forgiveness, but I love the direction you're going. I haven't quite heard it like this. I love it. But I knew that I had to forgive. And, you know, I'll tell you one thing, the number one abuser, which was my brother, I have 100% forgiven him. And how do I know that?
Good for you.
Because when I think about him, but he's not in my life anymore either. There is that.
Just
But
because you forgive him doesn't mean you want a relationship with him, and that's
exactly.
fine.
And
He's
it's
still a
because
dumpster fire.
he's still a dumpster fire. He is still an abuser. But
Yeah,
I understood it was important for me to forgive him, and I can think about him and it doesn't have an effect on me anymore. I don't have anger towards him. I don't,
perfect. That's
yeah,
what we're going for. We're
exactly.
going, you've got the people who say you need to forgive and forget. Okay, nobody's going to
Good
forget.
luck.
As I've told a lot of people who have heard me say this, there might be a unicorn kind of magical person on the planet whose name is Susie Sunshine from Sunnybrook Farm who can forget. I'm not your girl. It's not going to happen.
No.
So, what I'm going for is when you look at their name, there will be no emotional reaction. When you look at your past, and I come from a relative, not as bad as most, but I do come from a rough background. I can look in the past and I have no emotions on it. I actually can see the love that's back there now. And that's what I want. I want neutrality. When you see that name, you don't want a reaction. Now, I have science to back me up. You said anger is toxic. Okay, here's the how. I love the how. There is a whole chapter of science in my book, but there's a Japanese researcher who studied water. His name is Masumoto something. I can't really remember his name exactly. And I'm going to simplify this big time. He took several containers of water. One container of water, he just spoke words to it. That's all he did. He said loving things to it. He told he loved it. The other container of water, he spoke hate, nasty, swore at it, awful things. Then he put the water in the refrigerator and then he put it under a microscope. The water that he spoke nasty things to had these black and brown formations. And the water he spoke love to had these beautiful crystalline formations. You can Google it, it's right online.
Wow.
Why am I telling you that? Your body is almost 98% water. So when
Mm.
your self talk is awful, when you're angry and you're mad and it's all you can think about, what do you think you're doing to the water cells in your body?
Oof. So true. So
And
true.
Einstein proved that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It simply transforms from one thing into another.
Hmm.
So everything in our world, including this little microphone I have in front of me, has energy around it. So the special sauce to my whole system is forgiving the energy. So there
Oh.
is I'm not going to have you dance unless you want to. You don't have to hold a crystal or burn anything unless that's your vibe. Go for it. But it's a it's a very simple poem. You forgive. I forgive the person, the energy around the person. Forgive myself, the energy around me, and then I forgive the energy around the whole thing. That's why a lot of people don't stay forgiven, and you get mad again when you see them because one of the things is you didn't forgive the energy.
Hmm.
Now, when it comes to, let's say, a number 10 unforgivable person, let's say you don't want to forgive them. That's fair. It might be something really horrible. There are things, and Lisa will agree with me, there are things in this world that are unforgivable. I
Yeah.
don't care what anybody says, they're
Yeah.
unforgivable. So, what do you do if you have one of those people in your life? Well, there's other things you can forgive. You can forgive the energy around the situation, you can forgive the energy around the person. And the reason I call it a dumpster fire is because there's other things in the dumpster that you could forgive. Everything has energy around it.
Hmm.
So you can't forgive the bully who bullied you in the playground, but you can forgive the school, the energy around the building. You can forgive the table, the bed, the chair. You can forgive the energy. You can forgive the people who stood around and didn't help you. I forgave 1974
The
and
whole
the
year?
energy around it, the
The
whole
whole
year, all at once. the whole year. Because it was a dumpster fire. It's the year I tried to
Mm.
commit suicide, and I
Oh
did
God.
pick apart the memory. And I picked apart all the people I needed to forgive, and I forgave my school, my childhood grammar school, and the energy around it, forgave my childhood home. I forgave all of that, but I couldn't get it out of my head. It was still bothering me. So I actually forgave 1974 and the energy around it.
That's so interesting because I think about like when my mom passed. My mom passed when I was 16.
You can forgive dead people, by the way, because they're still in
Yes.
your head. It doesn't matter where they are or are not, because if
Yeah.
they're living inside your head rent free, it can be forgiven.
It's
Doesn't
true.
matter if they're alive or not.
And you did touch on that earlier, and I did want to
Mhm.
emphasize that you don't have to have the person standing in front of you. You don't have to even have a conversation with them. You don't have to have them say,
No,
"Oh, I'm so
no,
sorry."
they
Oops,
don't even have to
you don't have to
know.
do
You do it
any of
in
that in
you,
order to be forgiven.
yeah,
But it's interesting because when I lost my mom at 16, nobody helped me. It was really weird. There was no
mm,
support system at
it's awful.
school. It is. And when I think back on it, I'm like,
It's
dang,
awful.
that was a really lonely time. And, my
Yeah,
friends tried to help, but they're limited. They were my age. It was a big
they were
thing.
kids.
They were kids. But the
Mhm.
adults in my life really failed me. And I'm sitting here thinking about that because there is, when I think about that, there's anger that comes up. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time. I just remember being really
Right.
lonely. I didn't realize, oh, people are supposed to be helping me. I didn't realize that. But even my family, like my family was close until my mom died, and then they were gone, and they didn't come and check on us, and they check on me. And it's like, you just like broaden that whole forgiveness thing. It's not just a person. It could be a situation. It could be a
Right.
year.
It could be the whole year. You can forgive all the adults one by one. You
Right.
can forgive your childhood home and the energy around your childhood
Yeah.
home. You can forgive the dining room table where you used to get lectured every day by your father. Oh, that was just me. You can forgive, the dog. I mean, there's everything. You can forgive everything. When I say forgive the dining room table, I'm actually not kidding. It's going to take the energy off. So when you look back at your mom and that memory, you're going to see the love that was there. You're going to see little pockets of love instead of all the anger and the loneliness. You're actually going to flip the memory once you forgive all the pieces in that dumpster.
It's like you're taking off all the filters that are in front of you that are
Hmm.
having you see that person or that situation different.
Right. Right.
So, okay, so we can forgive all this, which is enlightening to me. Honestly, I didn't even think about all that. And I knew a lot about forgiveness, but mine was more, of course, focused on people, right? So this is
Right.
forgiveness of situations and everything that's affected by it. So how do we do it? What's the first step that we need to do?
The first step is to sit down with a pen and piece of paper, or if you're a young person, your phone, if you really have to, or
Yeah,
a computer, you know,
right,
and I want you to write down all the people you think you need to forgive. Don't even worry about them reaching out to you. I have to make amends. I have to call them. You
right.
don't. You can do this
Do
in
a
the
brain dump.
privacy of your own home. Nobody has to know you're doing it, right?
Hmm.
And then I want you to rank these people from 1 to 10 on an anger scale, 10 being unforgivable, 1 being the easiest person in the world.
Hmm.
Now, the world is your oyster. You could have 6 number 4s. I don't care. You can skip a number. Maybe you don't have any 5s. That's fine. But I want every name you write down to have a number by it. And
And
you
is
can
10
write
the
down
worst?
memories.
Is
10 is
one
the worst.
okay, okay,
1 is easy, 10 is the worst. Now you
okay.
can write down memories if you want. A friend of mine
Mhm.
wrote down a little red wagon. She had no
Mm,
memory of a little red wagon. She didn't know why she wrote down a little red wagon, but a part of her was clearly angry at the darn thing because she wrote it on her paper. So she
mhm.
forgave it. Obviously, it was a 1 because she didn't have any memory of it. But this is like an onion. I've been with clients who have said to me, okay, this person's a number 3. And we go through the mantra and they check in with their body and they're even more angry at this point. So they weren't
Mm,
really a 3, they were probably a 6.
mhm.
And that's because your mind is a brilliant, beautiful tool that protects you.
Yeah.
And as you forgive the first layer of memories, the vault in the back of your head is going to open up and there's a really good chance you're going to remember more.
Yep. So true.
And
Yep.
it's either going to be forgiven or you're going to still be angry, and it's a process. This is a marathon, people. It is not a sprint. This is going to
Right.
take a minute for some people. You can't
Correct.
get a number 10 down to a 1 overnight. It's
No.
going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of time. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to be good to yourself. I remember
Yes.
when I first came up with this method and I sat down and I made my list, and I must have had 50 people on it. And I gave everybody a ranking from 1 to 10. And I'm an overachiever. I've written like 12 books. So I'm a little bit of an overachiever. I live it and then I write about it. So I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to be like a phoenix rising from the ashes. I'm going to be like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon. I kept coming up with these examples. And I thought, I did it before bed because your body heals itself
Right.
before bed when you're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the water study. Just keep that in mind. So I went through and I forgave everybody, whether I believed it or not. Some of it I just paid lip service to because I was pissed. But I, I did forgive on some level everybody on the list. When I woke up the next morning, I spent the next 3 days in bed with what everybody thought was a stomach flu. And it wasn't the stomach flu. I did not
Mm-hmm.
eat a piece of bad fish. It was my body trying to play catch up. Remember those cells? They have to
Yes.
go somewhere. So the reason I want you to only do like 10 to 12 at a time is because your body needs to
Acclimate.
it kind of needs to propagate, if you will,
Yeah.
like a computer, and it needs to get rid of all of that anger energy. Most people get really tired after they do my method.
Yeah.
Some people get hungry, some people get thirsty. Politely said, some people are in the bathroom. Don't be alarmed, don't be scared. It's just your body getting rid of the dead weight, if you will.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to have you start with the first person, and I want you to imagine that person in front of your bed and imagine them as you used to know them. So if it's somebody you used to know in the 5th grade, imagine how they looked in the 5th grade when you were angry at them.
Go back to that
And
moment.
if you can't imagine them in your mind, well then put a chair in front of you with their picture or their name on it.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a prop, that's fine. And then you can either speak whatever you want. You could say whatever you want to say to them. You can get it all out if you want, whatever you want to do. You can let them have it if you want. And then you say my mantra: I forgive the person, the energy around the person. I forgive me, the energy around me. I forgive the energy around the whole thing. And so it is. And then check in with your body. Are they still a 7, or did it lower to a 6? Are you mad, or do you think it got tossed? Can you feel some kind of pressure in your body? You're going
Mm-hmm.
to know. And go through the whole list like that. Nobody has to know you're doing it. But please, with every fiber of my being, start with the easy ones.
Yeah. Start with
Don't
the
start
easy.
with the number 10s, because you're going to start to feel better. And people are going to notice. And people are probably might just maybe leave your life. Jim
Mm.
Rohn is a very famous guy, and he said, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
So as you get less angry, the people who are around you that feed on anger and actually revel in it and love it are going to start to feel a little funny, because you're not angry anymore. You're
Mm-hmm.
changing, you're turning into a different person, and they're going to either want to sabotage you or they're going to leave.
Yeah.
Let them
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Who was it? Maya
Yeah.
Angelou said, when somebody shows you who they really are, believe them the first time.
Exactly. It's so
Let them
true.
go. And
Exactly.
more people who are more, like energy attracts like energy. So
Yeah.
they'll leave your life, but other people will come in. I
Right.
promise.
It's so true. It's so true. And there's a lonely time in between that before the new people come when the old people leave. There's a
Shadow
little,
work is very lonely. It
yeah,
is.
it is.
Very.
It is, but dig in. So let me ask you this, because I know for me, forgiveness was a process. So we'll just talk, use my brother as the
Mhm.
example, because I feel like I've really, come around on that one. But it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in one sitting, like you were saying. It was a
No, it
process.
doesn't.
So when they're doing this exercise, is this something that they should do daily? And do they do it? Do they sit down and do it for 10 minutes? Is there something that they're waiting to happen before they move on? I mean, what do they do?
I do it every night before I go to bed. And I
Okay.
actually practice gratitude as well. I think of the
Yeah.
things I was grateful for that
Yeah.
day. And it's something I write down. It's just, that's what I think. I think of
Me
it might
too.
be I just had a hot cup of tea that day. Maybe it was a
Hmm.
rough day. I always try and come up with something.
Yeah. Me
And
too.
then I'll do my forgiveness work. And I will literally look at I don't need to look at a list anymore because I've just been doing this a really long
Yeah.
time. But back in the day, I would look at, let's say, 5 people on my list, and I'd sit there and I'd focus on the first one, and I'd think about what happened. And then I'd say the forgiveness mantra. And a lot of people say, it didn't work. Yeah, it did work. You just forgave the first layer of the onion.
Right.
And you've forgiven somebody because if you've really forgiven them, people have told me their shoulders feel lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Yeah.
people say they feel energy in their solar plexus, which is right in the middle of your stomach, above your
Mm-hmm.
belly button, right below your chest. Some people, they just kind of know magically that they've forgiven. They can feel it somewhere in their
Yeah.
body.
Mine was in
And
my
if you don't,
chest.
exactly. So if you don't feel that feeling, that's fine. Don't put a check by their name. Go to the next name and try again tomorrow. And keep doing that until you finished your list. And do it before bed, because after you've done it, you're probably going to get really tired, and I want you to sleep so your body can heal.
Yeah. And rest.
It's a
Yeah.
very simple process. And you can forgive dead people,
Yeah. I
and
did.
it's something that you practice every single solitary night. So let's say you try and forgive a level 7 person. Let's say it's a cousin or a best friend or something, and you tried to forgive them and you can't, so you try the next day. Okay, I had somebody who said, I can't. They couldn't
Mm-hmm.
even forgive the energy around the person. It was so bad. And they thought
Yeah.
it was a 6, but it turned out to be like a 9 or a 10. They were really mad. So forgive yourself for not being able to forgive and the energy around that thought, and say that 3 or 4 nights in a row. And that's going to start to clear the energy. And then maybe you can pull some things out of the memory.
Mm-hmm.
You're still not probably going to be able to forgive the person or their energy, but you might be able to forgive the building where it happened.
So
Or you
one
might be
step.
able to forgive, maybe it happened on February 29th, so you can forgive February 29th. Maybe it happened in public. You can forgive the restaurant where it happened. There's other things that you can
Mm.
forgive.
So you're
And just
you're
keep doing that every night. And sometimes you're your own number 10. Forgiving yourself
mm-hmm.
is the hardest thing. And the way I
Yeah.
forgave myself, because we all have to forgive ourselves, don't we? We're not perfect. We're really not. Every single one of us has probably got a regret in their past somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I could do it was to I can't pronounce this word.
Compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize. That's the word, what she said. And I looked at the teenage Catherine as a separate person. And she created a life, and she became that dark person to survive.
Yeah.
And she had limited tools because she hasn't learned anything yet. I can
Yes.
forgive that. And then the 20-something-year-old Catherine, she did the same thing. She created an energy and a vibe, and she did the best that she could with the limited tools she had in her 20s. I can forgive that too. And that's how I forgave myself decade by decade. Because the
That's
past can't hurt you. You can just look back.
and that's so true. And that's one of the things that oftentimes we don't, when we first start learning about forgiveness, that we don't even think about forgiving ourselves.
Forgive yourself.
Forgiving ourselves. And that is the hardest. And I know for me, sometimes I remember some of the behaviors that I had during survival mode, right? I wouldn't do it now, but I did it then. And the damage that I did
Yeah.
to myself and to others. And it's, you
She
know,
didn't know any better.
she didn't know any better, but my first
Yeah.
reaction is just to be horrified. And then, you want to go down that road of beating yourself up. But I stop myself and I say, wait a minute, you were in survival mode. You
Yeah.
didn't know any better. You know better now, and you can forgive yourself for that time. You literally were in survival mode. That's all you knew. And you've
Yeah.
learned now that what that was, and you don't do that behavior anymore because you're not in that anymore.
You're
And
not in
that,
survival mode anymore. And hindsight
right.
is 2020, isn't it? We can all look back and
Hmm.
say, I should have, I could have, I would have, but you were in survival mode. You were
Yeah.
trying to eat. You were trying to pay your rent. You were trying to breathe.
Yeah,
You were
I was
trying to
trying to get through
survive.
the day, get through the
Yeah.
moment sometimes. And, and I've said before, and I want the listeners to really take this in, that when you're in survival mode, there's behavior that you do in survival mode that you wouldn't do outside of it. They're really, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's the truth. And,
Mhm.
and you do need to forgive yourself for that. And I know it's hard for me because it's one thing for me to damage or hurt myself, but it's another when I hurt somebody else. And when I realize that I've done that, that's the one that I have the hardest time forgiving myself for, is when I hurt somebody else. And so, the benefit to that is I'm a lot further along in my healing journey, and I don't hurt people quite like the way I used to. I'm much more aware, and so I can avoid that. But yeah, forgiving
But you
yourself
could
is
forgive the energy around yourself in the situation. Whoever you hurt, you can forgive them. And I know you're the one who hurt them, but you could still forgive them. That would be an easy person to forgive because they you don't think they did anything. So you
right,
forgive the person, you forgive the energy around the situation. If you still can't forgive yourself, pick out other parts of the memory. Forgive the restaurant, the table, the chair, the bed, the park, that kind of thing. There's
right.
always something in the memory you could forgive.
So let's briefly talk about like the benefits to forgiving and the drawbacks to not forgiving, because those, I mean, we kind of touched on a little bit about not forgiving and what it can do. So can you expound on that? I'm sure
If
you
you're
can.
listening to this broadcast, I'm about to hold a very purple coffee cup. Actually, it's tea right in front of my face. You might want to hop over to YouTube and look at what I'm doing. Um, this purple teacup represents anger and bitterness, right? But look at my body language. I can manage my anger. I can hold it off to the side. I can put it in the back of my head because, well, it's easy, isn't it? I can handle my anger. This isn't a problem. But the longer I hang on to this anger, the more it's going to bother me. And eventually my arm's going to start to hurt. So now look at my body language. I'm using two arms to hold up the glass. It's starting to come into my brain. It's starting to come to the front of my brain and kind of getting into my conversations and trip me up. But I can still kind of manage it. I mean, I can still kind of function. If I continue to hold on to this anger, now the coffee cup is in front of my face. My life is pretty much stopped. I can't see the dream job that just walked by because I'm not
Ooh,
paying attention. I'm paying attention on the anger. I don't see my dream relationship because I'm so focused on the anger. And my friends have gone down because nobody wants to be around me anymore because I'm negative and I'm sick and I'm tired and I'm always talking about it. And I spin the story funny to make people laugh, but I'm still talking about it. It still bothers me. So, forgiveness by clearing the easy ones. The forgiveness energy is going to start to open up your life. You're going to start to pay attention. Coffee will smell better. It's just magically you'll start to smell things. You'll start to notice things. Why? Because you're not as focused on the anger anymore.
ooh, yeah.
So you might find a really good way to lose weight. Why didn't you find it before? Because you were too focused on the anger. Maybe you'll find a good job that will increase your cash flow. These things are all things that might happen, and people are going to notice. They're going to look at you and say, "Lisa, did you change your hair, or you did? Is that a new
So true.
outfit?" And you can either tell them or not. That's up to you. And as you continue your journey through your list, you're going to start to feel better and better, and the cells in your body are going to start to clear.
That is a great, great example and so true. It's
Hmm.
so true because that anger can just completely consume you. And it is all, and not only is it, can you not see, but the things that you see through the filter of anger.
You do.
You're not seeing it
100%.
clearly. Yeah.
No, you're seeing a negative world. You're believing everything the media. Our world is actually positive if you pay attention to the positive things.
Yes.
Now, not only can you forgive the things in your life, but you can forgive politicians. You can forgive cities. You can forgive the war in the Middle East if you want to. Why?
Hmm.
Because if you're watching the news and it's pissing you off, excuse my language, you can
True.
forgive that. Now, what's that going to do to the war in the Middle East? Not a darn thing. Isn't that awful? But it is going to help you enormously. You
Right.
can forgive anything,
Right.
absolutely anything.
It's almost kind of like part of what you need for your emotional regulation, right?
Exactly.
It's a
Yep.
tool that goes in that box to help you emotionally regulate,
Now,
right?
if you're at a party, let's say Thanksgiving and Christmas is coming up, and the reason I say Martha is
Mm.
because I do not have an Aunt Martha. So this is why I use Aunt Martha because I don't have one. But let's say at Thanksgiving, and you are always sitting next to your great Aunt Martha, and you know who Martha is. She drinks, she's nasty, and she loves to push people's buttons, and she loves to piss you off. And the madder you get, the more fun she has.
Oh yeah.
Everybody has an Aunt Martha. Everybody. And you've begged your family to not sit you next to Aunt Martha, but sadly, somehow you usually end up next to Aunt Martha. So what do you want? What do I want you to do? I want you to forgive Aunt Martha a couple weeks before you even go. And I
Mm.
want you to forgive the energy around Aunt Martha. And I want you to pick out a few Thanksgiving and Christmases when it was particularly awful and forgive the people in those memories and the energy around all those memories, and forgive the Thanksgiving table and the chair and the turkey and all these things. And what is that going to do for Aunt Martha? Yeah, she's still going to be awful when you sit
Yep.
next to her, but you won't care. You might even laugh.
You'll
You
be
could even turn
different.
it into a drinking game. Every time she does it, I'm going to take a shot. I'm sober telling you this. You know, so, but you can make this fun, and
Yeah.
she's not going to bother you as much. And what
It's
if she says something that does bother you? What do? Well, I have been known to go out into my car and close the door and just sit there and say, I forgive her. I forgive her. I forgive her. I forgive her. I forgive her 100 times. And I don't mean any of it. I'm just blowing smoke in my own face. I don't believe it, but it reminds me of forgiveness. And then that night I'll put Aunt Martha in on my list, and I will go back to the journey of forgiving Aunt Martha again, and I'll do the work.
the difference. What I love about what you just described about practicing this a couple weeks before you're going to sit next to Aunt Martha
Sure.
is you can do that and imagine what your mindset's going to be, because you're spending time on forgiveness on something actually positive and trying to,
Yeah.
do something positive towards this situation. Or you spend the 2 weeks dreading knowing that you're going to sit next to Aunt Martha and trying to figure out how you're going to manage this and how you're going to deal with it. And the anxiety rises up because you're going to sit next to Aunt Martha. And the next, she says something and poof, that's
And
the
she's
difference.
going to say something.
You know
She's
it.
going to push. She's going to do it. And forgiving her is a hell of a lot better than sitting there and imagining that she was blown up by a bomb.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, come on,
Exactly.
people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
and she's going to do it. And, forgiveness is not going to do much for the person, but it's
At all.
going to
Yeah.
do an incredible amount for you.
It really is. It really is. I know for me, it brings the anxiety down. And and it's interesting because I'm going to try this little exercise that you recommend, because what's interesting is, when I took my workshop back in 2001, I had forgiven my brother, but I didn't even recognize the abuse that my parents had done. And
Yeah.
then,
Your
isn't
brain
it interesting? And then
protected
as
you.
time went on,
Mhm.
my eyes opened up and I saw the reality of it. Well, it's just in the last like 3 or 4 years that I've really learned about my mom's history. And what that did is it actually opened the door for me to have empathy towards her, because before I was really pissed. I was really angry. I was saying bad things about her in my head a lot.
And that's
And
fair.
it's not fair. And I had to work through it. And so when I heard about her history, I understood that she probably was abused as well, probably
Yep.
pretty severely.
Mhm.
But then the thought crossed my mind, and this is the one I still kind of working through, is yeah, but you could have done things different. You could have treated me different. So there's still that hangs up on me, and I have
Mhm.
to let it go, because for some reason she didn't. And I'm the one in my family that's trying to break this legacy of childhood abuse and passing it along, but what it did is, at one hand, it created empathy for her, but on another, then it stirred up stuff in me, like you were saying, where, oh, now there's this, like, why didn't she forgive? She went through all this, and she knows what it's like to be abused, so why didn't she change that for
She
me?
she
Right?
didn't know how.
She didn't. She was in survival mode too. When I think back, I only knew her 16 years, and of that 16 years, I didn't, wasn't a lot, but she didn't. She was in survival mode, and she had her own stuff, and I get that. And so it's like you said, it's a process, and it's something that I need to bring up, and so I can take it from a 10 to a 7. I would say right now it's probably, when it does pop up, it's like about a 5. So it's
And
getting
that's
better.
great. You've taken a 10 down to a 5, and that is incredible work. I
Yeah.
mean, it's wonderful. And
Yeah.
now you can forgive the idea that she couldn't forgive you. You could forgive
Yes.
that. That's part of the forgiveness. You can forgive sentences, you can forgive words, you can forgive feelings, you can forgive literally people, places, and things. You can forgive anything. You can
Yeah.
forgive the day, the time, and forgive the energy around these things.
Right. So you're right when you say that you're going to teach a whole new way. And it's true, because I totally, like, if you try to convince me how important forgiveness is, I already know that. I've done my studies. I know how important it is for us. And everybody has their own journey and how they want to do that. But you expanded it. You took it and
Mhm.
expanded it and made it, in my mind, and I'll see, I think it will be easier to work
Yeah.
through that forgiveness for sure. Because, like you say, forgiving the energy around it as opposed to the actual action itself is
Right.
a good start.
Yeah. If you can't forgive the action, forgive the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's take an example. This might stretch people's brains just a little bit. I'll be gentle, I promise. I forgave a friend of mine who I went to school with years, like 40 years ago, long time ago. In the 19, never mind what year it was. And and I couldn't even remember. We were really close and I couldn't remember what we were mad at. So I thought, oh, that this is easy peasy. I drink my own Kool-Aid. I shouldn't say that. That's awful. No, don't Google that. No, I have to think of
I
another
know
way to
what you
say
meant.
it. Horrible
I
expression.
know. I quit saying
Don't
that
Google
too.
that.
I know.
I do my own stuff, shall we say. And they're
Yes.
all going to Google that now. That's awful. But I sat down and I really thought about it and I said, I can forgive this person. So I did. I hadn't spoken to this person in like 35 years,
Yeah.
maybe longer. So I sat down and I imagined what happened as they were as a kid, and I forgave them. 2 hours later, she calls me up on the phone. Now I'm a concierge by trade. I'm a concierge trainer. At least I used to be. I retired from it. So my concierge training immediately kicked in because I was shocked out of my mind. So I immediately covered that up. And we made all the right noises and said all the right things and became friends again. But I'm a curious little bear. And I said, I have to know, after all these years, why did you call me today? She said, it was the damnedest thing. 2 hours ago, which was exactly when I was saying my
Oh
forgiveness
my
mantra,
gosh.
she said, a figurine you gave me in school flew off my dresser, landed in the middle of my floor, and I decided I should probably give you a call.
Oh my gosh.
If forgiveness has an energy to it and has the power to move a figurine, and it has the power to heal the water
Yeah.
molecules in your body, imagine what it's going to do to your life. And that was for a level 1 person.
Oh my
She was
goodness.
700 miles away. This is serious science. This will work whether you believe it or not. And it works. Even if you just say, I forgive them, and you don't think it worked, you just forgave the first layer. Keep going.
Right, right, right. Whether you feel it or not. And that's the thing.
You may
That's the
not
thing.
feel it.
You're not going to feel it.
You may not.
Yeah, you may not. You may not. And you can't base it on that either. You can't rely
No, 'cause
on.
it works. It works whether you believe it or not. This is serious stuff, which is why I only want you to do 10 at a time. But this work will change your life. If you have hit a wall, now I'm not trying to bash any speaker or life coach that talks about the wall or the tools to bash through it. But everybody talks about that wall. We're gonna get through the wall. I'm gonna bash through it. I gotta get here's some tools. Okay. Mellow out. Take a couple bricks out of the wall. Forgive those bricks. Walk around the darn thing.
Yes.
Keep going. Circle back if you can. Forgive what you can and circle back if you want to.
Right.
Forgive what you can and keep going. When I got cancer, I'm a breast cancer survivor. I forgave chemo. I forgave radiation. I forgave the chemo chair. I forgave the infusion. I forgave the doctors, the nurses. I forgave the building. I forgave everything. Forgive what you can and circle back. If you can't circle back to this particular person, it's fine. Keep going. Not everything is forgivable.
This is so
And I'm the
interesting.
only one that will tell you that. Not everything is forgivable.
And it's so interesting because it's just another scientific fact of what trauma does to our bodies and
Oh,
what we
yeah.
can do to clear it out.
That's
Thank
right.
God. Seriously. I mean, thank goodness that we have that opportunity, that we can take that power back and we can be in charge of that.
Take your power back. These
Mm-hmm.
people do not need to know you've done this.
No.
Nobody needs to know. And the thing about anger, the person you're mad at, and this is what makes everybody, including myself, irritated. Your anger at this guy that dumped you. He's living his life, man.
Yeah.
He's having dinner. He's dating again. He doesn't care. He's
Yeah.
living his life, and you want them to be as mad as you are, but
Right.
they are not thinking about you at all. And these people are living rent free in your head. You can't get them out of your head. This is how you get them out of your head.
And it's just like that saying of you're drinking the poison and expecting them to die,
Exactly right.
which is so
And
true. And
this is how you get rid of the poison.
and unforgiveness is absolutely poison to you. And so we can say it, you can say it's selfish to forgive, okay, that's fine, because really it is 100% for you. It doesn't take away what they did. It doesn't diminish. It doesn't say, oh, what they did doesn't matter at all. They have to still
No.
answer about that.
They're still horrible.
It's part of
They're
your
still
self-care.
wrong. Yeah, they're still a narcissist.
Right. They're still who they are. And
giving narcissist is really hard because they're doing it to other people. I'm the queen of, I know how to talk to a narcissist. It's real easy. Here's how you talk to a narcissist. You keep the conversation on them.
Correct.
There you go.
Yeah.
You don't need to read any books. This is it. You just keep you don't talk about yourself at all. They don't care. Keep it all on them. And if they ask you about your life, you give a 1-sentence answer and you flip it right back.
It's so true.
I'm telling you, I figured it out. I'm in my 60s, man. I have learned.
It's so true.
That's how you survive a narcissist.
Oh my goodness. And they'll say,
you're such a good conversationalist.
I'm actually a good listener.
Sure I am. I know exactly how to talk to these people. Now, does it make you mad because they don't ask about your kids or your life or your job or anything? It did in the beginning until I figured out they really didn't give a flying fig. Right. So, yeah, if you've got a narcissist in your life, forgive them and just keep the conversation on them and you'll be fine. Better yet, don't go to the party. But if you can, if they're family, keep the conversation on them. You'll get along fine.
Yeah. 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 I have actually used that, and it was a survival technique at the time, but it actually works. It really does. Yeah.
It's 100% a survival technique, but it 100% works.
But when you understand why you're doing it, then it becomes, oh, no big deal, but when you're doing it like I just remember being at gatherings and I kept my mouth shut because I was in the room of a narcissist who wanted to have the whole conversation about themselves. So I learned real quick, shut up, be quiet.
And you're being so quiet. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm full.
Listening.
I had too much at dinner. I'm just really full. No, I'm not. Just don't want to talk to you.
I'm just going to let you talk. I'm going to let you do all the talking. I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm a concierge trainer. I've been training people on this, and it's you can read a book about narcissism to understand it, but really just keep the conversation on them, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, interesting.
That's the quick. What do they call it these days? That's the hack. I think is the buzzword.
Yes, I think that's the buzzword. Yeah, it's a hack.
That's the hack. There's a lot of fancy things you can do with narcissists, but my hack: forgive them, and then when you have to see them at Christmas time, try and sit on the other side of the table away from them and just keep the conversation on them. Because my mother used to say every family is the same, only the names are different. So we all have Aunt Martha's. We all have that one relative. Everybody. We all have the one that gets drunk. Every family has that. Every family has a narcissist. My family's mostly passed away at this point, but we all have this.
Yeah.
So when you have to get all these dysfunctional people together for a holiday, it can be fun.
It can, but I love the idea though. Start a few weeks before when you're going to get together with these people and start forgiving them. It really, there's two big things to that. One, it starts the forgiveness process, right? It's the layers. And two, it gets your mind in a much better place. Because think about it, if you're sitting here focusing on Aunt Martha and just what an awful person she is, and you're reliving all these stories, what kind of mindset is that going to put you in? As opposed to, you'd be surprised, spending time forgiving her, maybe even being grateful for her. Ooh,
there you go.
Ooh, that one. If you can get there, you've really arrived in a good place.
That's like taking a 10 down to a 1. Being grateful for Aunt Martha. Okay, that takes some Simone Biles level mental gymnastics.
Yeah, it does.
To get to there. But if you can get there,
yeah, it's possible.
You reach nirvana.
Yes, and it is possible. It is possible. So I'm just saying, spending that time is going to put you in a really good place. And it's going to give you the ability to handle Aunt Martha if you have to engage with her at the party. You're going to be in a different place. Because if you sit there and you think about all the things that Aunt Martha did to you, by the time you get there, you're already pissed off.
Oh, you're very pissed off because you're reliving all of these
Yeah.
horrible things
Got
in your head.
yourself
It's like
all
a
worked up.
movie playing in the back of your head
Right.
that you can't shut off.
Right. Right. So then she goes in and she looks at you, and that's all it takes.
Oh, yeah. One
And
word. And
you're
she
holding
knows
these.
that. That's the thing about the Aunt
I know.
Marthas of the world. They know that.
They know what
They
buttons
know
to push.
exactly what to say and what button to push. And they're
Exactly.
usually a relative. It's not usually a business partner or anything. It's usually a relative who
Yeah.
does this
Yeah.
to you.
And so you can't get
Our
away from
relatives
them.
can really screw us up.
So true. Family, you don't pick your family, unfortunately, but
No.
yeah, but it keeps it interesting. That is for sure. Well, this has
I will
been
give you
really,
that.
what's that?
I will give you that. It does keep it interesting.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes in a good way, sometimes not. So this has been really interesting. Why don't you tell our listeners how they can reach out to you if they want more information on this and maybe go through some sessions with you to understand it better?
Reach me at my website, which is katharinegiovanni.com. And Catherine, thanks to my mother, is spelled a little bit different. Thanks, Mom. And it's Katharine Giovanni.com. You can also get me on Amazon. The book is in paperback. It's an audio book because I understand not everybody wants to read. And it's also in print, in ebook form.
Excellent. And then I've got one more question. What do you want to leave our listeners with?
I think I want to talk to the women who are listening because this is usually a woman thing, not necessarily a man. But for the women who are listening, I want you to know you are worthy enough to lead a life of joy and happiness. No matter what you think, you are worthy. It's your birthright to live a life of joy. And
Yeah.
by doing this forgiveness work is going to lead you down that yellow brick road that is going to lead to joy and
Yes.
happiness. You
Yes.
don't have to live in a monsoon rainstorm.
No.
And you are worthy enough to be happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is for everybody. This isn't just for
Oh,
you and
yeah.
me. This is for everybody. It's
Everybody.
work.
You're
It's
worthy
work,
enough.
but it's worth it. And you are worth, yes, going through that work. Absolutely. Well, thank you. This has been great, Catherine. And you've opened up my eyes. I mean, like I said, I thought I knew, but I just learned a whole nother level. And I think what I like is it's bite-sized pieces that you can just start today. You can start tonight
Yep.
before you go to bed, and
Yep.
it will make a profound difference in your life.
Yeah, you don't even have to read the book. It's why I share the method to every podcast I go on, because even if you don't read the book, how I outlined it, listen to this podcast again and you'll be able to get the method. But there
Yeah.
are worksheets and all that kind of stuff in the book. And the book is, I mean, it's very skinny.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
100 pages. I know that a lot of people have the attention span of a tick due to TikTok. There you go. Pun
Yeah, there you
intended.
go.
But this method really will work for you. You just do it every night.
Yeah, just make that investment in yourself. Buy the
Yeah,
book, read a little bit every night. Just if you can start with just 5 minutes, 10
yeah,
minutes and sit and read and bring that into your life and practice it at night, 5 or 10 minutes at night. And the difference will be significant. Trust me.
it will.
Trust me.
It will.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
life will open up.
Yeah, I did not want to turn into a bitter old woman. It was something that I was working really hard. And I know if I didn't forgive, I certainly would have gone there. Absolutely. So, well, thank you, Catherine. This has been enlightening for sure. And thank you for sharing it with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's been great.